Hello, and welcome to today's Social Impact Power Chat with Lizzie Neufeld. Thank you so much for being with us, Lizzie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh my gosh, ditto. So, as you know, with Power Chats, we jump right in because we don't have a lot of time. So, we are going to kick off with our first question, which is how did you get into this wild world of impact?
So, the funny story is that I helped start a nonprofit when I was 10 years old, and it was called Caring About Kids Everywhere, and the acronym was CAKE. And that was kind of all we did was come up with a really good acronym. And I think from there I was like, well, I think I'm really good at marketing. But the that is the funny piece. But the more serious piece is that I just had always really enjoyed being involved in a variety of different social causes from a very young age all the way through college. And when I left college, I happened to get a job with United Way of Greater Los Angeles, which, at the time was sort of a grad school of sorts for people interested in social impact because it had everything from, the marketing, the fundraising, the corporate sponsorship piece. And really, you're running campaigns within corporations and helping them to fundraise and bring causes to their teams. So it kind of touched on everything. And it was just a wonderful experience. And I've been in it ever since.
Amazing. And, not to date either of us, but that was a few years back and the work has evolved so much. And, your work has evolved so much. So take us from kind of that moment into where you sit today and what you do today.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was so inspired during that time when I worked on federal campaigns. So I worked with the post office and the VA and the Air Force. And I was so inspired by the work that their team members were doing, the employees. And they were raising money for all of these amazing causes. And they wanted such little recognition for it, but they were raising millions of dollars. And I just thought it was so inspiring. And I was desperate to tell the stories that were coming out of these conversations and these initiatives and these different campaigns within, for example, the post office. And I wasn't really able to do that. And as I progressed through my career, I kept coming back to that I wanted to tell stories. So I've really done everything from working with family foundations, working for private foundations, working within the corporate sector to working with nonprofits. And the kind of theme that ran through it all, whether I was a development director, managing director, or helping to start it, was that I really just wanted to tell the story of impact. And the hope is that by telling the story, then you're inspiring others to go out and do that work as well.
For sure. So take us into your day to day. Now tell us about your organization. Tell us about what you all do for clients.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and founder of Strat Labs. We are in our 8th year, which is hard to believe, but we are a social impact marketing, communications, and philanthropy agency. So we work with so many amazing companies, nonprofits, foundations, and we're there really to help amplify their work and to help them tell their story. We always say we're there to power their purpose. So our expertise is helping the brands tell the stories that matter so that the world can be inspired and hopefully go out and do something similar.
Brilliant. Well, I
And
will
we,
say,
oh, go
go for
ahead.
it.
Oh, I was just going to say we do this through a variety of different ways. So we work on, everything from branding and rebranding to philanthropic advising, community engagement, social media, paid ads. There's so many different tools in the toolbox that you can throw at it to help tell the story. And there's not one size fits all, which I kind of love.
For sure, 100%. So talk to us about, there isn't a single person who listens to these power chats that isn't interested in powering their purpose. I'm confident that this is a relevant conversation for anybody that's following along. What are just, some trade secrets, if you will, that you would share with folks that are really looking to power their purpose through the art of communication, through, storytelling?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing is to have a genuine story to tell. If you're just starting out on this journey and let's say you're working at a company and you've just launched a CSR initiative and corporate social responsibility initiative and there's some great volunteering happening, listen and watch your team and see what's coming and happening as a result of those initiatives. Or let's say you all host a fundraiser or speaker or something that really aligns, with the organization, with the company. Listen and hear what people are saying. How has it impacted them? How has it motivated them? How has it inspired them? And if you're not hearing the stories organically, ask the questions, survey people, put a post up on your on your social media and ask your team to weigh in, ask your customers to weigh in. Did you like this initiative we did? I think what happens is that a lot of companies, especially companies, want to tell the story that they want to tell instead of really kind of listening to both the people internally that are maybe doing the social impact work and or the customers who are witnessing it. And I think that is sort of a trend that is coming, is to really kind of listen more externally instead of just deciding this is the story we're going to tell and then this is the work that we're going to do to support that story.
I love that. And I'll just say, in our experience, and one of the things I think is so cool about Strat Labs and, certainly what we try to preach with Ethos is there may be great communicators, great storytellers within your organization who are great at selling CPG products or working on sports teams or whatever it is that your business does. But ultimately, when it comes to this impact work and this impact storytelling, it is particular and there's something special about it. So I would love if you could just tease out, obviously you're preaching to the preacher, but what about social impact storytelling is different and unique, and how do you see people getting it wrong who have good intentions but maybe just are not like schooled in this world?
No, absolutely. I mean, we're working on this every single day, and we're trying to come up with a framework, something that we can offer people and say, this is how you do it. But there's no rules, as you know.
Right.
This is the Wild West out there right now. So, I think to answer the second part of that question, I think what we're seeing a lot of, and where we see a lot of mistakes being made, is that especially larger corporations, is they're trying to be too technical. They're trying to explain the technicality behind what they're doing versus just the purpose of doing what they're doing. And so, I think that they get into trouble because they get into the legality of what they're doing and, the reasoning, and then they get worried about greenwashing. And then in essence, they're greenhushing because they're not saying anything. And so I go back to what I said in the beginning, which is authenticity is key. Pick one story of one farmer who you're working with, who is working on sustainable agriculture and who has a wonderful story to share with the world, and tell that story and put resources toward developing a video that can be used across different platforms that highlights their work, and leave your brand out of it. Your brand will get inserted into it by just the nature of telling the story. So I think, for that's on the sort of the larger corporate side. On the smaller corporate side, I think it's the same tenets. I think you're still wanting that authenticity. And it goes back to this idea of really listening. Like, did it inspire one employee to take their family to go and volunteer because you have these amazing social impact initiatives within the company? Or, if you're in CPG and you have just this incredible packaging and, someone who's not at all connected with packaging is somehow inspired to recycle better at home. Find those stories. Those are the stories you want to tell.
Super, super interesting. And, I love lifting up a voice like yours because there are other people who would say this has to make sense from a P&L perspective. It needs to be tailored. So, I think for anybody listening to other stuff going on, Lizzie's voice in this is really powerful and important thing to think about, that, it's not about necessarily the bottom line. Impact work has its own credentialing and its own set of targets. And I would second that personally. So
yeah,
really, really amazing. Well, I can't believe it, but we're already at our last question because Power Chats go super fast. So you've already hit on this a little bit, but would love to just have your understanding of like, what does the future hold? When you look on the horizon, when you think about how you're future proofing your firm or the things that you hope are coming into view, like, what do you see?
Yeah. I mean, I think that what I hope I see is a lot more collaboration and a lot less greenhushing. I hope that we see companies coming to the table with really what they are doing without the fear of getting shut down or called out because it isn't enough. Because the truth is that so much of this is made up. I mean, when you think about the term carbon neutral, it's like, what does that even mean? Like, how are we measuring that? How do we even know? What are and I know there is science behind it, but a lot of companies are not using it from a scientific standpoint. So there is this sort of element where I feel like we need to encourage companies to speak out and to not be so shy about what they're doing, even though their legal teams would disagree, and to risk it. And just, if it's genuine, if it's real, and if the work they're doing is significant, I would say then they need to talk about it, because other companies, as a result, are sort of shirking to the back, and they're not wanting to share these stories, which I think is contributing to a slowdown in this industry. And then the other side of it is that don't just look at it from an environmental standpoint. There are so many benefits socially within the company and externally from the company that I think benefit society and social norms when you're talking about the work that you're doing. As far as Strat Labs kind of proofs, future proofing, is we're analyzing these trends constantly, and we're thinking through, what is going to be the next carbon neutral, and we're talking to people, and we're hearing from people, and we're looking at the science and the data, and we're trying to figure out, what's the next story that's going to need to be told. So that's kind of how we're analyzing it.
Amazing. Well, we will, continue to keep tabs on the things that you are seeing, and really appreciate the opportunity to connect, and super excited about everything you're putting out into the ecosystem. So thank you.
Thank you. And I applaud you all for doing this and for your incredible work in this space.